Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We've just finished talking about a young man that took over in Germany who was convinced he was going to bring Germany back in power. And we're in 1933. So Hitler shows up in 1933, and then what starts World War II?
Well, what happened was the Treaty of Versailles, which was signed in 1919, the terms were harsh. And now, when I mean harsh, I mean, for example, Germany couldn't have a standing army of more than 100,000. Germany could have no warships.
Germany signed on that?
No military aircraft. In other words, and they had to pay for what World War I cost the Allies. So the terms were very harsh, and the Germans didn't like that, and they were determined that they were going to come through it, and they were going to start over again. When Adolf Hitler took command in 1933, in 1935, the first thing he did, he was building up his army and his navy and his air force in other countries. And we didn't do anything about that. We knew it was happening. But then he moved into the Rhineland in 1935.
Which is what?
Now the Rhineland was a parcel of land between France and Germany that was not supposed to ever be occupied. It was kind of a buffer zone, so to speak. Mm-hmm. When he moved in there with his troops, France, England, none of them did anything about it. They hardly even spoke about it. And the next thing he did, he took over Austria. And then he took over Czechoslovakia. And in 1939, when he went into Poland, that's when France and England declared war against Germany, and we were in World War II. Now, you asked me a while ago, how about America? What were we doing over here? I tell you, it was a disaster. We were not ready for any war. Militarily, we were ranked 19th in the world as a war power. Even little Portugal was ranked ahead of the United States. Now
this is just the European front.
Yeah.
We ain't even gotten to Pearl Harbor.
Oh, no, and I haven't talked about that yet. That was a dangerous situation. But anyway, we were ranked 19th, and the First Army had maneuvers in New York State. And they had no tanks. And on the side of trucks, they had tank painted on there. And they used stovepipes as mortars and cannons, and broomsticks as guns. I tell you, we were in bad shape. And our president asked for 500 new airplanes, and Congress gave him 57. So we were in bad shape. Now, when Britain and France declared war against Germany, Hitler moved quite rapidly through Poland. He conquered France, he'd conquered Belgium, Norway, and he had taken over all of Western Europe. And so he was in Paris, and the swastika flew over all the main buildings in Paris. And you can't blame them, but the French people, they wept. To see Germans goose-stepping down through the streets of Paris was unbelievable. And then Hitler, with his Germans, went over to Calais, which was 22 miles from England. And they looked across the channel with their binoculars and made the decision that they would invade England. And the date that was set for the English invasion was September the 15th. It was called Eagle Day. And Hermann Goering was there, and Hitler turned to Hermann Goering and said, before we invade England, you've got to knock out the Royal Air Force. How long would it take? He said 4 to 6 weeks. Hitler said, knock it out. Because they knew they had to do that before they could invade England. So that's where they were.
Wow. And then what came next?
Well, the British had done two things that were important. Number one, for years they'd been working on radar. And no one even knew what radar was. But they had developed the finest radar system in the world and had their stations all along the eastern part of their country. And they divided England up into 4 sectors with a group commander in charge of each sector. And they had plotters there. And as aircraft would come in, they could plot them and send their fighter aircraft in to intercept them. Now, the British also had two fine airplanes. They had the Hurricane, Hawker, built by Hawker Company, and they had the British Spitfire. They had a total of 609 fighter aircraft, but the Germans had 1,200 fighter aircraft. The Germans also had 1,500 bombers. So the British had their work cut out for them. And when the raid started in the beginning, they were attacking the British airfields and the manufacturing plants. And they were doing great damage. And the RAF did a good job, but they became overwhelmed as time went on. And so it got to the point that it looked like that the Germans were going to be able to make that invasion on the 15th of September.
When did we get involved?
We didn't get in it until after Pearl Harbor.
So 1940.
Yeah, you know, actually what happened when the Germans had taken over France, they expected the English to surrender. They thought maybe they'd offer peace to England and they would accept it. But they didn't do it because they had a little bulldog as prime minister. His name was Winston Churchill.
Yes, he's been in movies lately.
He was a tough guy.
He looked like he liked to drink too.
So in 1940, in September, he made a speech which was one of the greatest speeches ever made to the English people. And he said, the Germans have asked us to surrender. We're not going to surrender. We're going to fight them on our beaches and fight them any way they want to fight, land, sea, and air. And he said, you know, we can't lose our freedom because if we do, the United States will lose their freedom as well. So let's brace ourselves and do our duty. And if the British Empire lasts for 1,000 years, mankind will say, this was their finest hour.
You know what I want to do? We have to stop. I want to have you back, and I want to do a follow-up show, like a part 2, that picks up where we're leaving off. Will you come back and be with us?
Sure, if you had to.
I would love to do that. I'm going to close us out for now, but this man is 93 years old. He said I could say that. He is a fount of information that you do not find in history books. And we are very grateful for his service and for his sacrifice. This is Our Issues Birmingham. I can't wait to talk to him again.